Thank you so much, Preeti. I'm Siobhan Braden, Director of Training and Technical Assistance for NCASE, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this informative and interactive session on how to develop and support a strong after-school and summer workforce. It's so great to see people participating from all across the country. We have folks calling in from Hawaii, from Maine, from Michigan, New York State. I see we have quite a few school-age child care directors. We have some folks at the state level. We have a number of different roles. And we have somebody from Alaska. Cassie, I'm sorry that we didn't remember to put your time zone on there. So welcome. Thanks, everybody. This is great. It's just wonderful to have all of this participation. So just a bit about NCASE. We're part of a national technical assistance system that's funded by the Early Childhood Division of the Administration of Children and Families. So we work with a number of other national centers to support states, territories, and tribes in implementing the Child Care and Development Fund. And the broad goal of our center, as you can tell from our name, After School and Summer Enrichment, is to ensure that school-age children in working families of low income have access to quality after-school and summer learning experiences that contribute to children's healthy development and academic achievement. And I'm going to say a little bit about our presenters now. We have a great group of presenters joining us today. So first I'd like to introduce Dr. Brandy King, who's the project director with the National Center on Early Childhood Development Teaching and Learning, one of our sister centers in the technical assistance system that I just mentioned. We also have from Maine, Pam Prevost, who's the statewide evaluation and registry manager for Maine Roads to Quality Professional Development Network. And we also have from Maine, Erin Fratty, network lead for the Maine After School Network. From Michigan, we have Lorraine Thoresen, and she's the coordinator of the 21st Century Community Learning Centers at the Office of Great Start at the Michigan Department of Education. And your NCASE facilitators and presenters today, in addition to myself, will be Ellen Gannett and Betsy Starr. So the goal for our webinar today is really to identify sustainable ways to strengthen the out-of-school time workforce at the system level and to build internal capacity for continuous quality improvement. And of course, our ultimate goal, why we're all doing this work, is to improve outcomes for children, youth, and families. And the objectives today are that we're going to explore the unique features of the after-school and summer workforces. We're going to introduce or give a refresher for those of you that are already familiar with the Child Care and Development Fund, or CCDF, requirement for professional development frameworks. And then we're going to hear from 2 states about promising system-building sustainable practices that focus on alignment. And now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Betsy Starr, who's going to share the agenda and get us started with the content. Betsy?
Great. Thank you so much, Siobhan. I'm really excited to be here today talking to everybody about this, and I hope you're all looking forward to it as much as I am. It's such an important topic. And today, as Siobhan said, we really want to come at it from the systems level. What do we need to do broadly and collaboratively and in an aligned way to support the out-of-school time workforce and to sustain these efforts? And so our agenda today, we're going to review really quickly some of the research and workforce trends to give context to our conversation. And then we'll highlight the key unique features of the school-age and summer workforces. What makes these workforces different? What is it that we need to consider to be inclusive of these workforces? And we'll also hear about the CCDF Professional Development Framework presented by one of our colleagues at the DTL Center. And, you know, it's really, I think it would be great to hear that to sustain these efforts, again, we need to work at the systems level, and this kind of a framework really brings that to light. And we're most excited today, I think, to hear from our representatives from Maine and Michigan who are going to discuss some of their successes and challenges in including out-of-school time in their workforce initiatives. And they will be focusing on collaborations and alignment and system-level approaches that are supporting the workforce in sustainable ways. And we're going to quickly point out some of the resources that we have available, and then hoping that many of you can stay on the line for an optional 15-minute discussion at the end. So hold on to all your questions, and we can get to them at 4 o'clock. And before we really dive in, let's take just a minute to review some of the working definitions that we have. So there's a lot of terms, and just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. First, school age describes the age of children served, ages 5 to 12, differentiated from infant, toddler, and preschool. So it's really describing a certain age group. Out of school time, or OST as we abbreviate it, refers to programming that's outside of the school day. This can include before and after school, summer, weekend, and both family and center-based childcare. Our national center name is Afterschool and Summer Enrichment, and we use this term kind of interchangeably with out-of-school time, after school and summer enrichment. So also not on this slide, but I just wanted to mention a couple other terms that will come up. And one is workforce development, and this is often used to describe the preparation of youth to enter the workforce, and that is different than what we're talking about today. So when we say workforce development, of course, we're referring to the support given to professionals who work with children and youth. And the term professional development is another one that is a little tricky. It can often imply to people just a training or a workshop. And when we use it, we're really using it more broadly, more of the idea of a professional development system to refer to all of the support needed for a strong early childhood and out-of-school time workforce. So this includes training, coaching, and technical assistance, as well as higher education, and also things like definitions of quality, full career pathways, increases in compensation, and the funding partnerships and advocacy needed to sustain the work. And career development is another term that's sometimes used to refer to the same thing. So these three terms, workforce development, professional development, and career development, are kind of used a little bit interchangeably to all talk about supporting and strengthening the workforce. So first, I'm just going to touch on the idea that this is based in research. So research in the field has shown that, first of all, quality matters, and secondly, that staff are a major contributor to quality. So we know what quality looks like and how to get there. We just need to get better at doing it. And the early childhood literature, as well as the school age and out-of-school time literature, has clearly shown this. Some of this research is noted in the references at the end of this presentation, including the work by Deborah Vandal and a report that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, the Institute of Medicine Transforming the Workforce, Birth Through Age 8. There's lots more research out there, so if anybody is interested, please do reach out to me afterwards, and I'm happy to point you towards lots of research in the field. So the CCDF reauthorization, the final rule, is another piece that I just want to make sure to talk about a little bit so we all are coming from the same context. So when CCDF was reauthorized, the OCC published a final rule about a year ago, and it emphasized, along with several other things like health and safety and equal access, it emphasized enhancing the quality of childcare in the early childhood workforce. It's really important to remember that 45% of children supported by CCDF are school-aged, that is ages 6 to 12. And that's a really big percentage, and it means that we all need to be paying attention to the needs of those working with that age group. So if anybody's looking for more information on the final rule, there's a link there. So the final rule really responded to several trends in the field. So there are a lot of things that are in there that are consistent with the work that's being done. And so, for example, it includes the need to have a progression of professional development to build knowledge. Sometimes we talk about this as pathways, or a way to build knowledge and skills that will lead to something. It also focuses on continuous improvement. So we've learned that one-time workshops don't necessarily translate into improved skills. Learning happens over time and should respond to these needs. There's an emphasis in the final rule on professional development tied to CEUs or college credit. There must be some way that this time spent in a professional development opportunity will count for something. You know, why should anyone bother to spend their time if it's not going to translate into something meaningful. And priority has been placed on orientation, particularly around health and safety. So I know that's not our focus today, but just want to acknowledge that many of you are actively responding to this part of the rule. And the final rule also has a focus on professional development that improves the quality, diversity, stability, and retention of the workforce. So in other words, it strengthens and sustains the workforce. So the good news is that there will be a little bit more money to do all of this work. The law gradually increases the proportion of funds states can use for quality from 4% to 9%, and these funds can be used for professional development. And the other good news is that most of these things are not anything new. Again, it's things that people have been actively working on for some time. So now I'm going to pass it on to my colleague Ellen Gannett, who is the director of NIAS and is part of our NCASE team. And she's worked in the field for many years and is going to share some of what we know about the out-of-school time workforce.
Thank you, Betsy. I am very, very excited to be part of this webinar today. So what do we know about the workforce? We have several sources of data that gives us a picture of the workforce, and several workforce studies that have given us a picture of the field. Most notably in out-of-school time, the National Afterschool Association, in partnership with the Forum for Youth Investment, conducted two major surveys in 2006. More recently, in 2013, National Afterschool Association, otherwise known as NAA, surveyed their members. And though this information was limited mostly to their membership, and of course those who were kind enough to respond to their survey, we're learning a little bit more about the specifics of the data and the information regarding the workforce. For those of you who are interested, we have the link available for you who, if you're interested in looking at the workforce information. The slide that you're looking at right now speaks to the importance of state registries. And we know that they are a fantastic source of data. And if you aren't already familiar with your registry, check and see if there is one in your state. And if you have one, find out what they know about school age. There is an effort underway to disaggregate data and information about staff in these registries. And if we can, we're going to be able to have some very valuable information about the school age and the after-school workforce. The professional registries are a central location for staff to record their trainings that they've attended and credentials and degrees they've earned. And it becomes a central hub for listing and advertising available trainings and for trainers to receive feedback on the workshops that they do. Far too often we end up going to workshops where we never really are able to add up the contact hours that we have accumulated over the years, and the registries have played an important function in keeping track of your professional development opportunities. They also can help recruit staff. They have an opportunity to help in the planning of your professional development, and they can help to determine workforce needs with real data. As a source of workforce data, we hope that in the not so far future, we're going to be able to see where the gaps are, what does our workforce really look like now, because again, we haven't done any particular rigorous studies for quite some time, and the time is now for us to better understand the level of our workforce. What we do know, though, is that there is quite a bit of information on what we see as the inclusive system across the continuum of ages. And I'm thinking that the state registries are going to be an important decision place for us to gather our data. Now, as many of you know on this call, there are a number of unique features that characterize the school age and the after-school workforce. For one, we know from the limited studies that we have that we're dealing with a part-time, often temporary, and in some cases, workforce with very little formal education, while they may have some wonderful experience in such settings as camps and other settings. The formal education part may be quite limited. We also know that the group is highly educated. And that was really a shock, I think, to some people, to see that a lot of people in the field of after school have higher degrees. Many are full-time, many have pretty good salaries, and have been around for quite some time. But we also know that many of the staff, their preparation came from allied professions, and some have been certified teachers, especially in the summer space. We find that the utilization of certified teachers is quite prevalent. People have come from a diverse experience, and we know that they work in diverse settings, and this may include family child care settings as well. And we learn from these studies that there is generally, and this is really, I don't need to tell you all about this one, that compensation for anybody probably aside from the one director of the program can be quite low. Benefits are often quite limited and in some cases non-existent. In the summer space, the workforce comes with its own challenges. What we see is that you have two distinct buckets of folks who work in summer. On one hand, you may have highly experienced certified teachers, and on the other, you may find that they're complemented by less experienced, often college kids, high school kids, and others who are quite young. So with the diversity of our workforce, clearly it has implications for professional development. The temporary nature, the less experienced staff who alongside certified teachers creates a challenge for us in trying to create a professional development system that's going to work for everyone. And because of the part-time nature of the staffing, we often find that many of the staff are juggling other jobs, other responsibilities, and how can you fit training into their busy lives? Accommodations to both of these groups is very challenging and will require some creativity as we move forward in our system building. Because, the question may be, what exactly do certified teachers need in terms of youth development and other kinds of content that they may not have been trained on and is quite distinct from their classroom experience. And then the question is, how do you train someone quickly to be able to provide quality programs for the summer programs when you have to fully, staff up with often only a month or so to do so? So this question about how do we support the full workforce is going to be quite an important aspect, whereas some people are going to be quite satisfied with workshops and professional development. Other people are looking for more rigorous opportunities that will articulate into college credit, for example, or a degree. And then there are some people that are actually thinking about ways to create these opportunities right on site at the program level with technical assistance, peer mentoring, and other sorts of role modeling where you don't have to go out to a workshop. So I think what we're really recognizing, and we've known this for quite some time, that there are still gaps in our knowledge base. We don't have current data, and this has really been important because nothing has been conducted in terms of a workforce survey since 2013 when NAA surveyed its members. So it would be great to see a national workforce study of school age and summer. And for example, we've got to have a better handle on what opportunities are the workforce assessing. We know that there's more and more opportunities for higher ed. We know that there are more and more opportunities for having credentials, but we don't really know if credentials matter. We may find that they do help to improve job performance, but here's the question: have they translated into increased earning or job advancement and career promotion? So there haven't been any surveys of the summer workforce specifically, and again, this is a place where, other than anecdotal information, we need to kind of get a sense of what's going on, not only during the academic year, but the summer as well as a specific workforce to understand. So at this point, I'd like to invite everybody to a audience poll. And pass it back on to Betsy for starting that on.
Sure, great. So thank you, Preeti. Just put the next audience poll up. It's talking about what challenges have you had in including after-school and summer workforces into your professional development initiatives. And some of the ones that Ellen has mentioned are up here, so you can check off just real quick. Have you had any challenges with these scheduling conflicts because of the part-time nature of the work, providing professional development that can accommodate sort of those two buckets of the workforce, those with advanced education and experience, as well as those with less formal education and experience. Quickly training a temporary workforce, that can be a real challenge. Forging partnerships between funding streams, we haven't really talked about that yet, but or anything else? Have any of these popped up for you all? So take a minute and give your response, and we'll take a look at what's out there, the challenges. See, I'm not seeing a lot of responses. I don't know if folks are having trouble answering or what. All right, I'll give it a few more seconds. If people are not able to participate in this poll, that's okay. A little food for thought about what challenges you've been experiencing. All right, and I will just move on then. Again, but be thinking about what challenges have come up for you, and there might be some things that you want to ask about in the optional discussion time at the end, some questions for our presenters. So I'll go ahead and introduce our next presenter, and it's good timing here. We've just been thinking about the challenges, and it's really bringing us to the idea that we need to support the after-school and summer workforces with a system of support. So, this is including defining quality with core competencies and supporting quality with training and professional development pathways, registries, career pathways, improved compensation, and other sustainability strategies like partnerships and funding and advocacy. So some of these pieces are definitely already in place, and now bringing them together becomes the next step in the real work. Not any one amazing coaching model is going to be successful on its own and sustainable on its own without the rest of that system in place. So Brandy King is here to talk about the CCDF Professional Development Framework and those requirements, which help to bring the systems approach to the work. Dr. Brandy King is a part of the National Center on Early Childhood Development, Teaching and Learning, where she serves as Project Director for Child Care Aware of America. Their work supports building the child care professional development workforce in all states and territories. And though Brandy's bringing an early childhood perspective, we'll be listening for ways to be inclusive of the out-of-school time workforce. I'm going to pass it on to you, Brandy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Betsy. I think this conversation is just fabulous, and it's really speaking a lot to the work that we do at the DTL National Center. And I would ask you all to think about your own state systems and think about how similar they are, how different they are, and think about really if the state next to you or the territory next to you is the same. And we know that they're not. And each state really who utilizes funding from the Child Development Block Fund, they are required, according to the new the regulations that passed in 2014, to consider and to prepare a professional development framework. Now, one thing that's unique about this is that those professional development frameworks don't have to be written. They don't have to be on the state's website. They don't have to be shared with anyone, but it's just the regulation that states actually have to have this plan. And so that CCDF lead agency must describe in that plan their framework for professional development, for post-secondary education, for caregivers, teachers, and directors, but that includes the school-age care. And as they're thinking about this and they're putting these plans together, they must establish those qualifications according to the law that's designated for school-age providers that provide services for which assistance is given to them according to their work that promotes social, emotional, physical, and cognitive development of children, and that improves the knowledge of the caregivers, teachers, and directors that work with them and all the staff that work within that context. And these regulations specify that there are 6 key components that should be included in the state professional development framework. And I'm going to talk through those components in a moment, but they are professional standards and competencies, career pathways, advisory structure, we can go back a slide, advisory structure, thank you, articulation, workforce information, and financing. Now, if you're thinking about a framework, there are lots of ways to define frameworks. However, the context that we work from is that a framework is defined as a basic essential structure that supports the building of a system or a concept. And some of you might be familiar with this professional development framework on highly effective teaching and intervening from the National Professional Development Center on Inclusion. And within this context of this framework, if we're thinking about how to break these pieces down when planning for professional development and implementing such a framework, it's important to consider these areas of alignment such as the who could be the participants, the what, which is the content, the how, which are the strategies, and the why, which are the outcomes. And professional development planning often begins with the why or that desired outcome. And so we want to think about in a school-age program or after-school enrichment program, what are the basics around delivering health and safety training versus systemic professional development that changes the practice? And as states are putting these frameworks together, they have to think about these things. Why are we trying to improve the practice for a school-age staff person? Or why are we considering the change in practice or looking at the system? So, and you also have to have that context of evaluation. And so if we're thinking about out-of-school time teachers or staff that are changing their practices, we really want to consider those pieces that require a relationship-based approach and those that also can benefit from coaching, which I believe Betsy discussed earlier. And so those components, as I mentioned, that come from the CCDF are listed here. but I want us to think about the work and how states will come together. It is strongly encouraged in the regulation that although this work is being completed at a state and local level, states must think about bringing a diverse variety of stakeholders to the table, and that must include the out-of-school time and the after-school and summer enrichment groups, such as the 21st Century Program, because none of the policy areas can be addressed within isolation. They all have intersections and relationships to varying degrees. And so I'm going to talk just a moment about these components and how they might relate to the work that you all do and the work that you're trying to strengthen. And so if we think about professional standards and competencies, we're thinking about the content. Ellen brought up a great point that the school-age professional might have strong education, but how does that relate to the national standards within that context? Or how does it relate to the preparation for cultural or socioeconomic or linguistic or diversity amongst the students and the families that the staff interact with? And so as we think about these competencies and professional standards, they must be portable. They must be able to go from one setting to the next within those sectors. And that is one key component that states really must ensure that they're following within those standards, especially around the competencies, especially around development and continued delivery of quality, high-quality services. Additionally, I think Ellen brought up a critical point around credentials, and that's going to bring us to our next two components, which are career pathways and articulation. Within the school-age workforce, the career pathway really has to include a pathway around credentials that support development that is there to unify that workforce. And so as we think about a career pathway, it must be one that states pull together that allows individuals to plan, allows them to have a sequence of achievement across increased qualifications. If we're thinking about some implications that fall within that, those credentials and those achievements must be stackable, they must be portable, and we want them to be able to move across roles, settings, and sectors. And so within professional development, we're always thinking about this continuum of both the credential and the career pathway and how that all fits together. So if it doesn't articulate, which is the next point, then it really misses the ability for those courses to have value beyond their time. And really, we want to think about articulation that is taking place without the loss of those credits or without the loss of the training that the professional has taken. So states really should think about where they require colleges and universities to form those articulation agreements and how they help even to support the success of non-traditional students. And within this professional development framework, states have to think about their advisory structure. Who is coming to the table? So who are the ones who are actually sitting down, digging in, doing the work, thinking about those big ideas around compensation and retention and helping to gather that diverse stakeholder group together. And so having an advisory system in place is critical to these frameworks. And then also, as you're thinking about who's making the decisions, how are we making the decisions? Are we using data to inform the workforce? So that's a critical component, that the data that's being collected around the intervals, around the work that's being conducted, around the professional development, all has to help us to gauge the impact and then make critical systems change. And lastly, financing. That has been brought up today as well. And that just means that states within these frameworks have to think about the resources that come with direction and what are those implications. So building a system that has infrastructure supports that continue the work and that continue to decrease compensation parity while increasing recruitment and retention. Those are very critical and very important. And so I'm not sure if everyone on this webinar is familiar with this policy blueprint for state early childhood professional development systems, but almost 10 years ago, NACCE created this house. And in our field, I think we always like to use houses as structures. But I just wanted to share this because this house structure, which was created in 2008, really was the impetus for the components within the CCDF regulation that occurred, and all of those 6 components I just shared. And so we have a resource compilation that is shared in your files. It's entitled Professional Development Frameworks, and it has a link to this document because it really shows where NACCE was thinking and now where our federal government thought around developing those policies that help to integrate a professional development system, not just for early childhood, but also for school age and the after-school summer enrichment groups. And so with professional development frameworks, we want to continue to show those linkages to other states, to other sectors, that include higher education. It includes the 21st Century Program. It would include the quality rating and systems within state models. And so lastly, I just wanted to share that we also had another resource that's included as a link in that file that we provided that was just released last year by NAEYC, and it's called the Build It Better, Indicators of Progress to Support Integrated Early Childhood Professional Development Systems. Now, although it says early childhood, it really helps. It's a framework for states to pull their compilation of all these components together and dig in deep to think about what they are missing, where their state needs to go, and helps them to build benchmarks so that they can create these strong professional development frameworks. And so all of those pieces that I just shared around the components are in there, and they are listed. And I apologize if not everyone saw the house image. I do apologize for that, but when you download the slides, it should be in those slides for you. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you, and I'm going to turn it back over to Betsy. Thank you so much, Betsy.
Great. Thank you, Brandy. That was really great. I think that those professional development framework requirements might be a little bit new to some people. You're just starting to hear about them and find out about what's going on in your state. So it's great to have that nice review of them. And we're going to attempt another audience poll, which now we're learning may not work that great, but we were going to ask about which components that you're working on in your state. And so maybe Preeti can get that up for you guys. And as I think we have learned, you can only put one choice in, so maybe which is like the biggest piece that you're working on in your state, and if you guys want to just respond in a chat box with some other areas that you're working on, then we can get a sense of what's going on out there too. I'll give you a minute, and I am not seeing results pop up, so I don't know if that means people are not responding or what. So if, Siobhan, I'm going to ask you that if you can see results, that you can chime in and let us know.
Hi,
what is being
Betsy.
shared.
Yes, hi, Betsy. We did have a little bit of I think a loading issue the past couple of minutes for some folks with Brandy's slides, and I am now seeing the results popping up. So if you don't see them in a minute or so, Betsy, I can go ahead and summarize what we're seeing.
Yeah, that would be great if you could do the summary. I think I'm a little slow here on my end.
Okay, great. I mean, so thus far, the top choice is professional standards and competencies. 69% of people who responded said that they're working on that. So that's fantastic. I know results are still coming in. And the next most popular choice is career pathways. Right now that's at 19%, and we know some people are having a bit of a slow load time, so we apologize if you're not currently able to access this poll at this minute.
Great. Well, thanks. I mean, I think it's just, it's fun to be thinking about what you might already be working on and how far along you are. So you can keep thinking about that. If people want to keep using the chat box to give some responses, that would be great. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our state presenters now. So first we have Pam Prevost from Maine, and she is the Evaluation and Registry Manager at Maine Roads to Quality Professional Development Network. And she has a lot of experience in out-of-school time that she brings with her to that role. And she is joined with her by her colleague, Erin Fratty, who is the network lead at the Maine Afterschool Network. And they work closely together on these workforce issues. So I'm going to pass it on to them. Thanks so much, Pam and Erin. And you can.
Thank you, Betsy. This is great to be joining you all this afternoon. Maine has a very broad vision, as you can see, and our goal is that we provide all families and children throughout the state with access to high-quality, diverse settings to meet their children's individual developmental, cultural, and linguistic needs. This is a goal that we cannot do alone. It takes many partners throughout the state, which we're fortunate to have, and Erin will explain some of those partners to you.
Thank you, Pam. So this slide shows just a snapshot of the fiscal map of the Maine Professional Development Network, and the Child Care Development Fund is administered through the Office of Child and Family Services with the Department of Health and Human Services. So they have met the task of creating the Early Care and Education Professional Development Network, and have also established the Quality Ratings and Improvement System called Quality for Me. And that system does include some school-age standards as well as for early care. The purple boxes below just point out some of the major players in our system. The Maine Roads to Quality runs the professional development, and you'll hear a little more about that later. The Afterschool Network is one of the statewide affiliations to national groups. We're part of the statewide after-school networks. There's one in every state, and as well, we really work to connect to the Maine AEYC and the Family Child Care Association. So what we know is that having folks connected to more national movements creates excitement and energy, and so that's a key. Those are key network partners for us. And as well, the Center for Community Inclusion and Disability Studies, we have a family resource and referral database which works in conjunction with the Quality for Me rating system. So those are our key players. And then a sub piece of that for the out-of-school time landscape is that the partnerships with that the after-school networks bring into the child care system. And in Maine, that includes the Department of Education's 21st Century programs, the WISE, the Boys and Girls Clubs, municipalities and their rec programs, 4-H youth development, summer camps, summer programs. We do work with summer food programs, after-school snacks, and so the after-school network is a strong partner with bringing in out-of-school time players that are might not traditionally be of the child care system. And we know that the collaboration with state agencies, this collaboration promotes positive workforce development, and we can collaborate with the Department of Health and Human Services, the CDC, Department of Education, as we work closely together and our relationships develop, then the workforce will thrive from that.
And now Pam's going to introduce a little bit more of how we define professional development in Maine.
So for us, professional development, we've taken on the NAUYC and NACRA version from their training and technical assistance glossary. But we see professional development, or PD, as a continuum of learning and support activities designed to prepare an individual to work with and on behalf of children and families. And beyond the training, we also feel that ongoing experiences to enhance their work, such as TA and on-site consultation, are where we see the most movement from our PD efforts. We also have adopted the house model as our framework for Maine, and we have developed a team that we call the Professional Development Accountability Team, which is fondly called PDAT because that's a long thing to say. And this statewide team crosses entities and funding streams and brings together early care and school-age education folks from family child care, CDS, all the way through to our colleges, higher education that support or that provide programs and develop our workforce for early care and education in higher education. So this is a very strong advisory group, and we're all on the same page to make sure that our PD efforts are making sense both on a statewide level, but also reaching the cultural and regional differences of each area. So in this next slide, you'll see that as our speakers have spoken about earlier, the one-time training just doesn't really move our workforce forward very well. What we've found, in you can see where the arrow lands, is that by providing professional development, training, education and experience is another piece, and on-site consultation or technical assistance, where those pieces intersect, or where we see the most movement for providers in our early care and as our youth development or school-age settings. Maine specifically has always been thoughtful in including school-age and summer into our workforce professional development initiatives. We have a workforce registry that has a specific school-age setting. We have a career lattice, which you'll see a link to at the end of this presentation, that shows the progression for a school-age provider on our registry. We also have professional development that is specific to school-age, the school-age workforce. We have all of our Mainest quality trainings are based on core knowledge areas, and we have competency-based youth development credential that is available to the workforce across settings. We have had family child care providers earn that credential who really wanted to spend some time focusing on their school age, since most of their professional higher education courses really focused on early childhood. We also are seeing people that are directors that come back from a degree in a totally different area but need that youth development understanding to perform their job well. So these are all ways that we can help them move along a continuum to a highly effective workforce. We also provide on-site technical assistance, communities of practice in regional areas, national accreditation support for programs looking for national accreditation through the Council on Accreditation, and we also have school-age specific rating system standards for that workforce as well.
And I'll just mention real quickly that our focus here in Maine is to consider all out-of-school time providers to be part of one field. So it's not really that we consider them, child care or DOE, for instance, but we want to bridge any differences from funding streams and to consider providers as necessary components to our youth development strategies here in the state. And what we all want is healthy, thriving young people. And we know that the collaborations are essential, that relationships that started years ago have continued to be strong collaboratives. And that's just as we mentioned before, that our quality rating system does have school age standards in it, and our registry has a direct care career lattice for school age providers. And so we have heard from the field that because we have that lattice for school age providers, that the field can use that as a wage incentive for their workers. And so at the higher you go on the lattice, that's a pretty good indicator to an employer that they have more knowledge and could be an indicator of a higher wage. And also when we consider groups that have gone through accreditation, so if you have a program that goes through the accreditation process as a whole group, then that has been known to reduce turnover, and we've had some stronger teams because of going through that process together. And those are just two things that we have heard from the field that makes a difference to them. And then I just also want to mention that we have a National After-School Association affiliation, and so again, we have that connection to a national movement for our out-of-school time providers.
And I think lastly, the fact that we do have articulation agreements with our higher education institutions for all of our Maine credentials, which really helps people to be able to take that next step, knowing that they can take their credential in youth development toward degree in education. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Erin and Pam, for sharing all that great work that you're doing and really highlighting those collaborations. And I love the idea of thinking about everybody as part of one field and not separated by funding streams. So it's really important to moving the work forward. We had another poll. I know we're a few minutes behind in time, but maybe we can throw up one more poll just to get everybody thinking about what successes you've had in including the school age and summer workforces into your initiatives. There's, again, it's the multiple choice. You can put your first one in there, and also maybe just use the chat box over the next few minutes to think about let everybody know what of these have been successful for you: building cross-sector partnerships, combining funding streams, providing joint trainings, including OST in your registries or your core competencies. Do you have youth development credentials? Do you have career pathways that include out-of-school time, or anything else? And once again, Siobhan, I'm going to look to you since I am technically challenged over here to give a quick summary on what's going on with the poll, and then I will introduce our last speaker.
Hi, Betsy. Actually, in the interest of time, because we really want to make sure that we get to hear from Lorraine, I'm going to ask Preeti to take down the poll, and maybe people can just be thinking about these topics for the chat afterwards. So Lorraine, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks. This is Lorraine Thorson, and I'm with the Michigan Department of Education, and I wanted to talk a lot about how we've been working to align our programs across the state. And we feel that it's really important to the workforce for after school and summer to be aligned with each other and with what's going on in the early childhood realm as well. So our governor started a few years back by aligning our offices and bringing child care into the Department of Education. So we now have an Office of Great Start, which is under the Department of Education, that brought together the Department of Education and the Department of Human Services around early childhood education. And since Office of Great Start in our department in Michigan with the Department of Education already had out-of-school time as part of the office, that automatically brought us together with early childhood. So now it's early childhood education, the Office of Out-of-School Time Learning and Preschool, and the child daycare offices, which run our CCD funding. So by doing that, that brought us together to bring around our licensing regulations and bringing those partners in, which is a whole other department in our state. So licensing and regulations, we've gone into a workload where we work together with licensing to really align what they're asking for licensed programs to be modeled after what we consider quality for school age as well as infant, toddler, and preschool programs. So it brings the whole alignment together. We have aligned our standards of quality. So we had infant, toddler, and preschool standards of quality, and we have school day standards of quality, and now we have out-of-school time standards of quality. We adopted those by our State Board of Education back in 2003, before some of this work even got started. And we have looked at those and realigned them every 5 years since, and we're up for looking at it again in 2018 as we start to look at new licensing standards based on the child development changes that happened. We also have aligned core knowledge and competencies. So we have early childhood and preschool early core competencies for our workers in the field, and we have aligned those with what the NAA, National Afterschool Association's core knowledge and competencies were. And what we did was took and adopted in 2011 what NAA had put together, thanks to Ellen and the work that she did to align what other states were doing around core knowledge and competencies. So that brings us to our QRS system, which took what we had already put together as far as standards and core knowledge and competencies and put those into what we already had in our preschool QRS system, our pre-K, and we added 5 to 12-year-old programs into our quality rating and improvement system. So by taking what we had already aligned and moving that alignment into that system, we now have a system that is moving from licensed programs being the baseline to a quality rating system that includes our model standards, our CKCs, and it goes from infant, toddler, preschool, birth to age 12. And because 21st Century also looks at beyond age 12 and other programs, we do similar to Maine. We see all out-of-school time programs and summer learning programs as part of the whole picture. Since our Office of Great Start is challenged with P20 programming, meaning we also include post-high school programming into our Office of Great Start. So that includes our career and tech ed programs, and we're working on aligning all of those with what's happening in after-school and out-of-school time. We're looking at competency-based education and doing alignments in school and informal training to align all of those together as well. So again, it's aligning all of the systems to help make it unified for students, and that we're looking at the whole student, the whole system together as one system. And then collaboration. We find collaboration is the way to get things done, and we've moved from having programs that worked separately in silos to actually working very well together, and lots of work together on our work with our partners, our Michigan After-School Partnership, which is our MOT network, our programs that work with all of the other pieces that put together our whole system. So we have stakeholders, we have the departments working together, and we have our statewide partners all aligned to work together to build the whole system. It's still a work in progress. We don't have our registry up and running yet. We're working on that, and our career lattice is being built into the registry. And I'll close there so that we can move on to the question and answer period.
Great. Thanks so much, Lorraine. And sorry to rush you. We had so much great information to share on this webinar that we ran a little bit out of time. Really appreciated our presenters sharing their thoughts and work about systems thinking in their states and across the country, and really that we all have the same goal, which is to serve children and families across the continuum.